So we'll call the meeting to order at 2:12. First item of business is to amend the agenda. It was noted that I neglected to put in the director's report. Might I suggest that we insert the director's report between 2:20 and 2:30? Or who moved?
Second in here.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing none opposed, motion passes.
Okay.
Um,
Second, we had voted to approve the regulations with the revise. Yeah,
right,
we had voted it by 14 to accept the new regulations, draft rules and regulations.
right, yeah, that was
Yep.
and Mary mentioned that there were some amendments that,
Well, I think there are amendments that we had made here. They just showed up in the new version.
right, so at 2:10, we can talk about how to remedy that.
Yep.
Either by changing the prior vote or just going with the prior vote and changing the copy.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'd like to discuss is as we know, Janine has not been here for a significant period of time, and so just kind of what would be the best way to kind of address that, and see if we can move forward. So why don't we have that conversation at
I'd suggest you put it under I would suggest that you to say COA board policies, because this vote to approve the final draft, did you guys decide that's
well,
already approved?
we're gonna do that at 2:10.
Well, right, but okay.
But
Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if you amended the agenda for 2:10 to just say COA board policies, then you could
Cover
vote
that.
or decide that you already voted during that conversation and also have that specific conversation in that, if that's the amendment that you made.
But yes, and we had
Yeah.
voted
Right,
because
okay, so have it at 2:15 or include it as part of that
no,
conversation?
if we just change that to just say,
Oh,
we're
I
gonna
see.
talk about COA board policies
Okay,
and.
So
yeah.
the
no, I-
amendment would be to strike the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 letters of 6 words of that 2:10.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
just read COA board policies.
Okay.
I make the motion that we strike vote to approve final draft and just leave it at COA board policies.
I second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, and the next item is the meeting minutes from our previous meeting on May 14th. Any questions, changes to our previous meeting's minutes?
Can you guys, everyone's voice is really soft today. Can we all talk just a little bit louder to be heard? Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
not sure I can today, but
Yeah.
I'll try.
To the best that you can, to the
I
extent
know.
that you can.
I know.
You can do
I don't know.
So the meeting minutes for the meeting of May 14th. Any changes? All those in favor? Oh, I'm second.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Meeting minutes for May 14th have been approved.
Mr. Chair, I just want to point out on your agendas, it should notate what minutes are being approved, just so everyone's on the same page. Instead of just saying approve of meeting minutes for the next time, I would just notate the date of the meeting minutes that you're approving.
Okay, all right.
Thank
thanks.
you.
May 14th.
Okay,
That motion?
what's that?
Can you change that motion?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I don't think we need to change that one. Okay, so in terms of the COA board policies, It was noted that I included a new draft of the board's policies, and then it came to my attention that we had approved the previous draft with amendments. Has everybody had the time to look at what was included in this week's um draft policies? I incorporated the changes as best I understood them. Just a couple of notes. I did, in terms of the definitions that we had talked about in terms of loyalty and care, et cetera, I included those in the explanatory notes and not as part of the body of the policies itself, just to make it a little less cumbersome.
I think it looks great, Dennis. Thanks. for-
I think it looks good.
Okay, so in terms of parliamentary procedure here, these will be, we will just note these as the ones that have previously been approved and remove the word draft.
Yeah, because your
Approve these.
board approved these at the last
Last meeting.
meeting
Right.
Okay,
with the revisions. The revisions are, as no one has any issue with the revisions, so I think
No.
included.
they were
They were
voted
minor,
on and
yeah,
into order at the last meeting.
Right,
Okay,
So then the minutes should just reflect that the board simply accepted the final draft.
right.
okay.
Yeah. I think we agreed that you couldn't start enforcing your policies until they were voted, until they were accepted. And so they were accepted not at this meeting, but they were accepted at the last meeting.
At May 14th.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay. So I will remove the word draft and give to you, Katie. Where would you keep these, or is there a
So
spot?
these
for-
are your policies, so
I
you
understand.
guys can keep them. I think you could certainly put them on the town website.
Yeah.
You guys have your own page on the town website. You could ask Cindy to post them there.
Yeah, okay. All right, and just for the public's information, what we, the board here, have passed the policies for the COA board. Those are different from the policies generated by the senior center and the town's policies regarding, however the center is run, Katie's hours of operation, personnel policies, all the rest of that. These policies that we're referring to here refer to the actions of the COA board. So it's just, the things tend to meld together. But it's, I think, good that we try to kind of understand the difference in those entities between the actions of the COA board and the actions of the senior center as a town department.
If we wanted to look it up, we would look it up.
Well, that's what you're free to have a printed copy, but it will be posted to the town's website under the COA board.
How about when you have the final non-draft copy, I can print, if you'll email it to me, I'll print some out and put them out for people to take a look at.
Okay.
Or if you,
No, I need to remove the draft. Well, we'll do it after the meeting.
okay,
I can
that's
remove,
fine.
I can remove the watermark.
And Katie and Mr. Chair, I would recommend too that you just bring a copy over to the town clerk's office, a signed copy. She could stamp them in and we can get them up on the town website for you.
well,
Okay. Oh,
Carly, wouldn't I turn that in when I do the minutes?
Yeah, you could do it anytime. Yeah. Yep.
okay.
So you take it off,
Okay. Let's do that.
Yep.
And as part of this as part of the conversation regarding, as part of the policies, we, as is quite common in various boards, that there's if a member misses X number of meetings, because the members of the board here are appointed by the select board. If a member, for whatever reason, misses a certain number of meetings, how best to deal with that situation in order to bring the board back to being fully operational. You know, obviously Janine has missed several meetings, and so my thought is, with the board's approval, or actually I would take suggestions, how best to kind of see how to bring the board back to a full complement of 5. One thought that I have had is that, I would be willing to call Janine and ask her because the board would typically turn over at the beginning of July is the expiration for terms.
Well, but not all the terms, they're
No.
all rotating.
So, in this case, so her term extends for another year. But my thought was that I could perhaps call her and ask her what her intentions were regarding whether or not she wanted to continue, or would she be available to attend meetings now? And you know, just kind of see how she would like for us to do that or deal with that. Any other thoughts on how to, we're trying to move the needle a little bit.
Yeah,
Yep, no.
I'm reluctant to simply, we don't have the authority to have her no longer be on the board.
right.
And I am reluctant to simply approach the select board and ask them to remove her without, you know, giving her an opportunity to.
Okay,
Yeah.
but we
okay,
had we had voted in policies
Right,
that do have an attendance requirement.
yes.
So I guess my question is has she received them? Or do we have any way of knowing that she has received them?
Well, I emailed these as part of,
The typical package?
right,
yeah.
and they were sent to her email address. That being said, these were not in effect at the time that the absences started, so this is.
Correct.
Yeah, I think you have to go forward from last month.
From now,
So-
yeah,
Right, yeah.
So for the purposes of the policy, today is the first meeting that she's missed
Right.
per the new policies.
Yeah. But that being said, I think it is. Well. I do feel like we should, you know, communicate with her and try to find out what her, as opposed to waiting another 3 months.
Right.
Sure.
yeah, I don't think it would be, definitely wouldn't be remiss to have that conversation with her to make sure that she has the new.
Yeah.
Or put the schedule on email or send it to her. These are the months that where we're meeting.
Mhm.
Just as a reminder that.
These are the dates.
Well, I'm sure she knows that.
I'm sure, but
Yeah.
it's just a general reminder.
Yeah. So.
I think we owe her a call, you know, to find out what's
Okay.
going on in her life. Maybe she's got car problems, maybe she's sick or something, and she doesn't want to disclose that publicly.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I trust Dennis, and I'm sure he can get to the bottom of it.
To Janine's credit, she's reached out to
Yes.
me before each meeting to tell me she wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So, and it's been a variety of
Right.
reasons, but for the new policy, she really should reach out to you. I'm
Right.
happy to convey the message, but,
Yeah. So I will
That's a good idea.
reach out to Janine and just get a sense of how she would like to proceed. You know, obviously, if she wishes to continue on the board, that would be great. And, you know, we would just obviously encourage her to attend the meetings and provide input. If she kind of feels like she would prefer to resign, then we can ask that she do that to the select board. And then we could go about acquiring another member,
That personal touch is all that you need.
especially when it comes from me.
That's right, Dennis.
All the warm fuzzies.
I mean, because there are other alternatives now to an in-person meeting as well, too.
That's right.
You have the remote,
Mm.
Yeah.
and that's been in effect the past couple of meetings.
Yeah.
Although they were technicals, but I mean.
Yeah.
That's still, but there are other alternatives.
Mhm.
And ways to attend a meeting.
That's right. No, I agree. So, okay.
Mhm.
And next item on the agenda is my visit to the Pleasant Street Apartments. So I had previously attended as part of the open office hours, we have scheduled time for me to go to the Pleasant Street Apartments. And just kind of, it was on a different day of the week. And then it was suggested by Barbara, there were a lot of Barbaras and I'm forgetting her last name, that
Bobby Riley.
Barbara Riley,
Yeah,
that I go to, or that some member of the board go to they have a weekly coffee meeting, a community coffee on Wednesday mornings. So I dropped into that, and lo and behold, there were 10, 12 people there, which was great to see. So it was very helpful. I did get an email address and a whole bunch of phone numbers for you, Katie, and some names. I think you have them all, but I will give them to you so you can add them
Perfect,
to
thank you.
your list. As part of that, I mean, we talked about many things. Some of it was concerning the senior center. And there were many questions about how the building committee is operating and where that's going. Interestingly, they did, I asked about the ramp that had been discussed in terms of accessing the internal park. There doesn't seem to have been any movement on that. So has there been any from
all I ever get is from Ellen is, I'm calling you, I'm calling you.
so the Disabilities Commission hasn't moved or not, or, okay. I would encourage I would encourage, yeah, so I guess how can we see, because there were some folks there who felt like their access to that park was limited
It's
by the
limited.
fact that they could not, use their walker or wheelchair to, get through the
Mhm.
parking lot and to the other side.
Oh, they're residents at Pleasant Street.
That's right.
And isn't that also the Air Housing Authority? So
Yes,
should
it
they
is.
make their voices heard to them? Because I mean, it's
Yes.
because they're the ones that actually have to make the change, correct?
Right.
The problem is, it's not on the budget for this coming year again. I know that much.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Mhm,
the Disabilities Commission is meeting on the 17th.
We, if I could actually, that we have a quorum problem on the Disabilities Commission right now. We've had several resignations and there's been a couple that are not seeking reappointment by the select board. So we are gonna have a quorum problem with that committee. That being said, the Disabilities Commission can advocate insofar as that they can, advocate to the Housing Authority to make that a priority for their capital process. I think that's like limited as to what the Town Disabilities Commission can do. They can certainly bring up that there's issues. And I think it would be up to the Housing Authority to prioritize that within their budget.
And that maybe representatives of the COA board could attend that meeting.
Mhm.
And one of their members is here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
On
I
the,
want to say something. May I say something?
I'm sorry, on the Housing Authority or the Disabilities Commission? The Housing Authority.
Housing.
Housing Authority.
Okay.
I'm on the board. First of all, I was on the planning of the park. And when we were planning everything, the town, I presume it was the town, the selectmen said at the time, that we could not put from the parking lot going in. We do have handicaps that go in from Pleasant Street, but we
Right.
do not, and we could not put it in from the park.
And did they say why? Or do you remember why? You don't know? Okay.
Because of cars moving around, I suppose, or whatever, but that was one reason, and I know I've been to the park up there when we had our vacation there
Yeah.
last year. And I know that there was difficulty, and you want to use it.
Yes.
But they had said, no, we couldn't put it in.
Okay, and,
But what we did do is the handicap,
right.
Yeah.
From the
which we
street.
do have, which is from Pleasant Street
Right,
area.
right.
I know myself, it's hard to get to there.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I mean,
To walk down that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So,
And I would suspect too, the selectmen, I would suspect that issue with the, accessibility and where you could make your road cut was from the zoning bylaw, or maybe like the road, DPW road permit regulations. There's several different laws in town that could affect that. But how long ago was that? I mean, we're talking 20 years ago, at least, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
No,
No,
10 years ago.
10.
Well,
Well,
The park went in after the apartments were already there, didn't it?
yeah, shortly.
no, well, we made the path. I mean, it was a ball field. It was nothing, but dirt and whatnot, there. But then we made the path,
Yeah.
So I know that Alan has written a letter to the housing authority asking them to. Did he receive a formal reply in writing from the housing authority delineating the?
did he send a letter?
He did,
He did,
he did,
He
and
did.
we co-signed it or signed on
Yeah.
to it.
and he did not get a reply.
And what did they say?
He didn't get a reply.
She's saying that they, after Alan contacted the
Yeah.
housing authority, the housing authority did not reply to that letter
Okay.
in any formal way.
I'll make sure that
Yeah,
we find out about it.
That had to be-
Yeah,
last
yeah.
February,
Oh, yeah, no, it's been
if not
several
even
months.
before.
Say that
So-
again.
Had to be like last winter.
Yeah, because you talked about it after the.
Yeah.
Yeah, cookouts. I think it was January because the February meeting was
Yeah.
canceled due to snow.
The snow,
Right.
yeah.
So Judy, I guess what I think it would be good to be looking for is what is the path forward to improve access to the internal park such that people with walkers or mobility issues,
Right.
wheelchairs can go from the house, from the apartments into the
I'm all
park.
for it. I'm all
Right.
for going from the path, from the driveway path like that.
Yeah.
But I'll make sure, we'll discuss it at our next meeting, which will be
Yeah.
probably next week or the week after,
And, I know that Robert has expressed that the town will do what it can to
right?
kind of help facilitate, and Alan is in fact a town employee. But that it falls within the authority and the budget of the housing authority to see that what gets done.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the reason I bring it up is because I raised a concern initially because there was a wheelchair problem that was just problematic.
Yeah.
What I learned on Wednesday is there are several people who live in the apartment building who felt like they would be more willing to access the park if they could get there
Right,
without having to go up and around.
right.
So, whatever you can do, Judy.
I will, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Just in time for the director's report, and she storms out.
She's coming back.
No, I'm sure.
I know.
She probably leave, yeah.
Yeah.
Carly, have they advertised the open positions on the Disabilities Commission and
So-
any?
We haven't quite yet because technically there's about 20 whatever or 19 days left until the reappointments.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're gonna advertise all at once. Once the select board, so that they meet Tuesday the 18th, and then we'll be advertising for anyone that didn't renew.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Sure.
Okay, director's report.
All right, wonderful. And forgive me if I stand up and bolt back out the door again. The locking cabinet for all of our new equipment is arriving right now. So there's a tractor trailer attempting to back its way up our thing here. So, all right. So the June report is a summary of all the May's events. As you can see in the budget section, we're nearing the end of the fiscal year. Our meals costs were much higher than the budget. So we've been creative. I do have, as I explained during that last meeting, a revolving account that can help cover some of that. I did, however, make a list of some things that if we have a little bit of extra money left over, I would prioritize for things that are improvements to the senior center, such as both of the sound bars on both the TVs don't work consistently. And have found out after the fact that it's an issue with Roku's proprietary nature. So I really need a Roku sound bar, and we really do need the sound bar to provide adequate sound for our movies and events, because the TV speakers aren't enough. And I believe the facilities director has a use for our old sound bars, so that might not actually end up costing us any money. We might do a little swap. We do need a more portable carpet and upholstery cleaning machine to use down here. The town owns a large one. We're using my personal one down here right now, so I'd like to invest in something a little bit nicer than what I have and not as heavy duty as what that we could use on a more monthly basis. We can always use voice amplification equipment, and we need a couple more promotional materials for our community outreach events. And I'd love to add a Wii Fit to our things, but again, that will be sort of the kind of as I settle in the next couple of weeks before the end of the fiscal year. None of those are very expensive purchases. They're just, let's see, we had 83 seniors in the building this month, a total of 548 times. So you like us frequently. We like that. 683 hours of person programming. We have our Meals on Wheels clientele has shrunk dramatically in the last couple of months. We're losing clients mostly due to death, and are not replacing them in the same way. So the outreach coordinator and I are going to really start ramping up we've done some initial outreach, both to the discharge coordinators at the local hospitals and rehabs, as well as trying to get out on social media to people who maybe have, middle-aged adults. So as information for their adult parent, or maybe for neighbors that, getting Meals on Wheels deliveries, any number of Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday delivery options could be helpful, because it really is a great program. Let's see, in June, we're adding a sewing club and a bowling team to our list of programs. We had, they did their first bowling event last Wednesday. We had, I think, 5 or 6 people come. There's a couple more for tomorrow, and they're joining up with the Shirley Senior Center and the Harvard Senior Center, and we're kind of forming a league with teams. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
This is at Harvard campus.
And Harvard Lanes, yeah, because they just recently reopened under new ownership as well. A reminder that we are closed next Monday and Tuesday, the 17th and 18th, for the Housing Authority to replace the flooring in both the tenant room and the restrooms, and we're really excited about that. Because as everyone here knows, the flooring is quite uneven over there. Like the surface that it is laid on is uneven, so that's all going to be ground down and leveled. And then new flooring, which if it's not an exact match to what's in the kitchen, it's very close to what's in the kitchen to make a nice continuous look. Oh, wonderful. Here comes our case. So that is perfect. Thank you so much. Do I need to sign for it?
Yes.
Okay. I just need a second. Sorry.
Oh, good. It's that extra.
You want to change it on the ground.
Really well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sometimes they can get them off of the trucks easier than somebody else.
All right, so that's our new cabinet for the hybrid programming grant, paid for 10 Chromebooks, 10 laptops and 10 iPads to go along with the programming money and the OWL system that we are enjoying today. And so we need a cabinet where we can lock up all of that
Nice.
equipment. We don't have a lot of storage space here, so this is a portable on its wheels kind of cabinet, so that's gonna be fantastic. But at 165 pounds, I needed a special delivery.
Is that one of the ones that will charge them too?
Yes, it will charge them
Good.
and
Those are.
Yes.
wow, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
So, all right, where was I? That covers the OWL
Just
grant.
after the bowling team.
Yeah, just after the bowling team. Let's see, continuing to work on the hybrid programming grant. Again, volunteers has been the limiting factor so far. I'm hoping now that some of the kids are out for summer break, I might be able to rope a few more in and get our classes started learning more tech skills. As I mentioned, the meals program is popular. We served 273 meals this month to 50 seniors. Most of our meals are at or nearing capacity. There's always a little bit of wiggle room, 3 to 4 people, but as far as people who come that didn't show up or sign up but then don't come. But we're usually over 20 for most of our meals, if not at 24. And, you know, many kudos to our dining coordinator, Denise. She does a great job of planning delicious meals that keeps everyone coming in the door. And then I think the main thing you guys can read, we have wonderful volunteers, 14 of them. The building committee update I'll save for later on in the agenda. We had 82 riders on the van this month, a total of 452 trips. We definitely need additional capacity. It's something that I continue to work on. I feel like it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back with the capacity. Per diem drivers, I mean, Sam is wonderful. And we're really lucky to have had such a capable and longevinous, I don't know if that's a word, but I'm gonna make it a word for this purpose. Driver, so per diem drivers, any part-time employees, sometimes it, you know, it can be harder. So I'm continuing to look for additional drivers. Russell is off the road for a few more weeks. And I think the meat of what people wanted my director's report for this month was for the out of town policy, so which I've attached to the end of the director's report. Do we want to flow right on into that?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
So I repeated the analysis that I did last year. And so you'll notice on this page that has the 2 columns, and you have that on the back as well. The left column is for FY 23 and the right-hand side is FY 24. And so it shows that we service 404 clients this fiscal year. And just so you know, this is a partial fiscal year because I ran the statistics through the end of May. So I can rerun these again for the full year in July, but I don't anticipate it will change tremendously. So of our 404 seniors that we serviced this year, 289 of them were in town and 115 were out of town. That's a 71 to 28% split, or 72-29. I further detailed who were those 115 out of town folks and listed they're from a dozen or more different towns. You'll notice most of them are from Harvard or Still River, or actually, no, most of them are from Shirley, followed closely by Harvard and Still River. You'll notice the unknown in blank is 15 for this year. That is, we have far fewer that I didn't know what town they were from than the previous year where that number was 30. And I give the credit for that to Mary Ellen and to Marion, because we instituted some new policies this year for tax season, because these are largely tax clients. So we added an additional receptionist on AARP tax prep day and added some additional forms that allowed us to collect more information about those one-time, because AARP is open to people from all towns. It's not our program. We are their host site. But so we don't share information with AARP. So we instituted some new policies this year. So we were able to narrow that down a bit. So I think that's fairly intuitive. I think we knew that they were going to come from mostly from our surrounding towns. When I break it down further and I say of those 115 people, what role do they play in our senior center operations? And so I took a look at how often each of those people came to the senior center over the course of the year. So if I look at people who are in the senior center once a week or more, these are our regular senior center users. That was 28 people. 28 of the 404 are in the building more than one time a week. So that's our regular crew. Of that 28, 23 of them are Ayer residents and 5 of them are out of town residents. That's an 82% to 18% split. And they come from Shirley, Lunenburg, and Harvard. Again, not a surprise. If I expand that out a little bit to people who come once a month or more, we're at a relatively similar split. 80% Ayer residents, 20% out of town residents. Again, coming from Shirley, Littleton, Harvard, and Petersham in that case. Oh, I'm minus a page in my own report. Yeah, so if I flip over to that final page, I detailed each and every one of our van trips because I realized that the van trips and the van capacity have been the largest source of conversation about whether we allow out-of-town participants to participate in senior center programs or not. And so I took a look at all of the events that all the van trips that we've hosted, and I broke them down whether they were supper club or social trips. And it created a total capacity of 368 seats on the bus. We had 399 people express interest. That's, again, pretty intuitive. We know that there's more demand than there is supply. There was an average of 2.6 people on a wait list for every trip. So there are more people interested than there are spots. But there was also an average of 3.1 cancellations per trip, which means that though we are taking a wait list at the beginning of the month, for the most part, there are more people canceling than there are people on the wait list, which means most people on the wait list are getting the opportunity to participate if they want to closer to the time of the event. So again, in terms of averages, that brings the average attendees to 11.1 on a 12-seat bus. And the split between Ayer and non-Ayer residents on that 11 people is 7 Ayer residents and 4 non-Ayer residents, which is roughly a 2/3, 1/3 split. There's some variability. You can see if you look at the line item for any individual trip, that especially when it comes to that first coach bus trip. But I took that coach bus trip in and out when I was looking at the analysis, and it didn't really change it more than 1% in either direction. So I didn't feel the need to omit it by any means. So that's the data you guys asked me to provide so that we could discuss it. Any questions on
So
that?
the coach bus trip is the 10-16 fall foliage trip?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I did a little bit more. There were 26 trips, only 5 of them were at capacity. Which works out to your numbers, it was about 19%. So that meant 21 of them were at, or 81% were not at capacity. Is there a capacity point at which you say it's canceled? See, if you've got a 12-passenger bus,
Right.
at what point do you say, if only one person through all cancellation says I'm there, would you go?
I don't know about for one person, but last week's beach trip is a great example. It was a cool rainy day. We reached out and talked to everybody the day before the trip and asked them if they wanted to go. And we had, I think, 5 people who still wanted to go. And so we went. Most of the people canceled out of that trip, understandably, but we went. So for me, Sam is a salaried employee, he's here. If we blocked his time to go on that trip, and we don't go, it's not like we don't have a wait list for rides. So
Okay. I was just sort
Yeah.
of understanding how that,
And typically with events, I've already prepaid the tickets. So have already invested the money. So,
okay,
it would, if we go with only a few people, there aren't that many rides though that went with. So there aren't that many rides that went with,
We had 3 last night.
so that one's not on this list. But you know, 9, 8, 9, 10 out of 12 seats, I'd feel no need to cancel that.
okay.
Yeah.
In that case there too, and you said you've already purchased the tickets beforehand.
Mhm.
So if somebody cancels it, is the senior center eating those tickets?
So it depends on the event, and that's a culmination of, if someone has paid their fee and they ask for a refund, if I have someone to replace them on the trip, then I can give them a refund.
Okay.
If they cancel and there isn't someone to replace them, then no, I don't offer a refund. But in almost all cases, the senior center is already subsidizing the cost of that. So, like, for example, we're doing high tea next week. So,
Mhm.
yeah, next week. So I'm charging $20, but that's a $39 ticket. So,
Okay.
there's senior center costs no matter what on that.
And do you have a way of, any folks who kind of perpetually cancel, are you aware of, or do you try? No, I have no idea whether there are or are not. But if there were people who are canceling frequently,
Right. I would say that when I look at that for lunches, I can talk about that with a little bit more detail than with trips. I'd have to go back and re-look at that. For the most part, I find that people sign up at the beginning of the month for all the trips, events that they'd like to participate in. And then as the month goes on, particularly if something is later in the month rather than like right now, doctor's appointments come up, conflicts come up, and they may cancel. We just always encourage people to cancel far enough in advance that I have time to find someone, because if you know you're 5th or 6th on the wait list and I call you that morning with 2 hours notice, you know, it can be hard to fill that
Mhm.
spot.
Mhm.
Okay.
How would another driver alleviate or kind of mitigate the concern regarding? That is, how would you use an additional driver to kind of make things more available?
So I think the tension around the van trips really has to do with the demand exceeding what our capacity is. And so if I could get a per diem driver, a second driver of any fashion, but a per diem driver going on a regular, consistent basis, we could offer more trips. So right now it's 1 supper club and 1 or 2 social outings per month. I could easily double that. And then I think not everybody would want to go do something every week of the month, whether it's their own life outside of the center or the finances of it or whatever. With a wider variety of things, maybe not everything would appeal. There wouldn't be such a sense of like, if I don't do this one, I won't get to do any of them. So I think increasing capacity is a good tool with another driver to really help mitigate it.
Or doubling up the buses for the big the beach trips.
Right. And yeah, and that would certainly allow, if we had another driver, we could take, and we took both vans, because we can borrow a van for a day or 2 from Mart. That's a good point. We can take 24 to the beach rather than 12. That doesn't help. That doesn't solve for all events. Like supper club, I would never do a second bus for a supper club, because
You know,
12 is overwhelming for a lot of restaurants.
Yeah.
24 would be too much, but for like a theater event or the beach or something like that, yeah.
but the thing is that a lot of the other senior centers put out-of-towners on a wait list.
Mhm.
Can I ask a question? Why can't we, like, put on a waiting list, let's say Air residents first, go 2 weeks? If you got 2 weeks as an Air resident to book a ride. And I'm from Harvard, I call in, I say, I have to put you on a waiting list. And as soon as that 2 weeks are over, you say, okay, these people are now can have the ride. And whoever was in Ayer, like Thursday, when we went off to, I was one of those who went to Rockport.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I didn't call in to go to the beach this month, I wasn't gonna get in.
I was in the.
And I'm from Ayer, and I spend a lot of time, as she knows, in this senior center. And I felt that was wrong. We should be able to have a couple of weeks to say, oh, I wanna go. And anybody from out of town gets on a waiting list, and then they can go if we don't have room in 2 weeks, if we have room.
Is
Totally
that,
agree.
is that an issue
Why can't we
with
do something like
scheduling,
that?
What
or
do you
is
have
that?
5 days?
So I think that's a possibility if, from a logistics perspective, and I love all of my volunteers. I love each and every one of you, the 2 of you sitting here. And you, yes.
Sometimes.
No, always. I
Not
am
always,
so
not
very appreciative of all of the time that the volunteers spend at the front desk, because I could not do my job without someone triaging all the calls that come in. It's really complicated to go to a tiered system like that. First and foremost, because I don't believe in it. I don't believe it's what's best for the Ayer seniors. Everybody in this room knows how I feel about that. I
Oh, yeah.
don't feel like I think it's socially not a good option. As we get older, our social circles shrink due to death, hospitalization, relocation. It's important to keep new and different and fresh people coming into the center. You have conversations that you haven't had before, all of those things. So if I set that aside, okay, and then talk about logistics, okay, so just from a logistical perspective, that would either mean, like if we use your 2-week example, that would mean that in order to really make that work, I couldn't plan any of the trips for the first 10 days of the month, right? So they would need, and I try not to ever do one on the first or second day of the month anyway. But then each one of those trips, what 2 weeks means for each one of those trips, it's going to be different. So now not only do we have to sort out the sign up sheets, then we have to sort a rolling set of days for who can sign up for which events on which days. And then we have to maintain a list on the left-hand side that is the Ayer residents, and then a wait list for the Ayer residents, and then a list on the right-hand side that is non-Ayer residents and a wait list for non-Ayer residents. And then, let me finish and then someone has to be in charge of saying, now we've hit that date. Now, who are we going to move from here to there? And it, again, would be one thing if there was one, and then calling them, and it would be one thing if there was one volunteer up at the desk all week long. But there's a different volunteer every morning and afternoon. So that's 10, there might be one all day. So 9 volunteers that have got that update has to happen. And, you know, either Mary Ellen or I does a morning update every morning for the receptionists when they come in. This is what we've got going on. And even as it is right now, there are a lot of errors with sign-up sheets. There are a lot of errors between lunch and that it adds a wrinkle to things. That I think sounds really, well, just give them make everybody wait 2 weeks. But when you look at the logistics, which that would be my job then to manage the logistics, it's really far more complicated. You know, we tried, that would require a lot smaller print on each page. We tried smaller print for taxes this year. Everyone complained across the board. Every single person complained about the smaller font on the tax sign-up sheets. So we can't go smaller font on there. We have to keep it larger. So.
I'm sorry, Barbara, do you want?
First of all, I agree with what you're saying to a point.
Mhm.
My point being that not everybody who's into the Facebook, town, whatever. not everybody goes in right away to find all the trips, the newsletter.
Mhm.
There's people that are on that 24/7 that get it every day. So as soon as you put that on, somebody's looking at it, but it's not everybody from the town of Ayer that has a computer that is able to do it.
It's
So they
actually-
wait for the newsletter to come out. So if you get on the 28th or the 30th, you wind up getting a newsletter because you're gonna pick it up when you come here for dinner, for lunch. You're gonna pick it up.
For what it's worth, Barbara, I have never once put it out via email or on Facebook before the paper copies have been here. The paper copies are always available here about 24 hours, because my priority is getting the newsletter done and printed and folded and sent out. And then it's usually the following day, if not 2 days later, that I'm able to go, okay, now how do I get it out? And then I do Facebook and email. So the paper copies are always
Right.
coming out first,
Before you put it online.
before it's online. Yep.
Because every time there's a trip, right? Every time we've had a trip.
Yeah.
There's two people, and I'm not trying to be prejudiced about anybody, but there's two people that have it ahead of everybody. They could be second on the list to go on these trips. They could be second and third, right? And then you got the town of Air people. Because there's only 12 people on the bus, so you got the people that come here every day
So
that can't get on the list because.
It's very, it is a very
Right.
difficult thing, but I noticed that a lot of senior centers that I go to, Westford, Littleton, those are the true ones I go to. It says in Littleton, right in the bottom. Littleton residents for, in other words, it doesn't say that, but they say it that, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that means if they're doing a project. And you wanna join, you can get on the waiting list,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
Littleton residents are gonna get that first chance to get on that bus or that dinner or whatever it is that they're sponsoring.
Same
So
thing
you
with
think
Groton,
first
they're
10 days,
they're taking care of their taxpayers
In
first.
Westford, you could exercise.
Mhm.
Your exercises, residents, 6 things for $25, non-residents, 6 for $35.
Mhm.
More money for non-residents than residents, so they do that.
what did they do in Harvard, Katie?
I don't know, I don't go Harvard.
I'm asking Katie,
Oh.
what do they do in Harvard?
that, I don't know. I'd have to check and see what their new policies
don't
are
know.
now that they're in a new building.
But I mean, I brought in those papers here. And I, show people what they have there if they wanna go.
And the other thing that I wanna bring up is the form that you're saying you had, they want smaller print and you can't make it any smaller, that's for the, what is it? I know what it is, tax
Mhm.
people, okay? But for the lunch thing, it does have to be bigger, even the lunch schedule, it has to be bigger.
Well, and so
It's
that,
very difficult to
And I'm-
read.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
that
happy
it's
to
gotta
make,
be-
I'm happy to make the lunch one
Okay,
bigger,
good.
but that's making my point about going to a tiered system, is that some of our sign up sheets even now are too small. And so in order to fit in all these lists of categories of people and not take it online, right? And I know most of our regular users would not be comfortable registering with my senior center online. So I want to keep it as a pen and paper sign up, but I'm limited. I can't manage 3 or 4 lists all on one page and still have everybody be
Well,
able to
no,
read
it
it.
wouldn't, because out-of-towners wouldn't be able to sign up until 2 weeks after. If it was
10
5,
days.
if it was 5 days,
5
if it was
days.
10 days, if it was 2 weeks.
So you're saying not
They
even
just-
take the call, tell them they have to call back?
That's what
like,
it is in other towns.
So you're not even doing a tiered system, you're
we
saying if you're out of town, you
called-
can't
if
call
we
before
call
XYZ
Westford,
date.
If we call Westford, they won't take our name until it's this day.
If they're doing a trip,
If they
if
do-
you were going to Foxwood, if they were going to Foxwood,
Mhm.
they would have, Westwood residents first, if they had room on that bus, anybody's welcome to go. To fill the bus.
After
But
a
that,
certain
after
day.
certain days, yeah.
So I'm not one of my volunteers who's here. I don't think it was. So we don't currently ask when someone calls on the phone and when they're in, we don't currently ask what town you live in.
But if it's in the
Sometimes people
newsletter,
know, sometimes people don't know. It's relying a little bit on the honor system, but there's already, again, what I'm saying is there's already accuracy issues even in our existing program. I had a very attempting to be helpful volunteer the other day, take an email address to be added to the newsletter. But it didn't occur to them to ask what the person's name was or what their phone number was. So I couldn't enter an email into the database without it being associated with a person. So I get lots of messages about, someone called about this and there's a phone number, but not a name. What I'm saying is that, again, I'm super grateful for my volunteers, but adding an additional layer of procedure on top of it, I think is setting people up to be frustrated. And we obviously, anytime you change any kind of procedure, you have to retrain on it and everything like that. I don't have a lot of confidence in our ability to carry that out fairly. And then I think that's gonna create other issues. Plus, again, I just philosophically don't believe in it.
but I think your taxpayers are getting frustrated. And
I
because we're the ones being shut out.
And I do understand what you're saying, like, I do understand that. But the number of people on the wait list for every event that we've had in the past year the number of cancellations has exceeded it. So very few people are actually getting shut out. Maybe they're not getting. So again, I'm looking at the averages. It could be that they're the events you were interested in, but I ran the averages for those. So
I haven't been called.
So I guess let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to try it for a month or two? To see how it goes? I don't know, Katie.
Yeah.
I understand. I understand the issue with the tiering and everything else like that. You've got two volunteers here who are gonna sit on the phone and who do our
I'm a
phone calls
volunteer
there.
too.
And March too, so you've got three.
Mhm.
So
They seem to think they can do it,
Karen,
so I'm asking.
or alternatively, would it be possible to do something like test out the system on one trip every couple of months? That is, for this trip, we'll try to air residents first, let's say, for some small 48 hours or 72 hours on only, specify which trips those are, just to see what happens, what the response is, how it's
Well, I know what the
logistically
response would be. Those people that are out of town, which again, it's really 4 people, and it's the same 4 people that it was last year.
Right.
It's those 4 people
Yeah.
who are here multiple times a week participating in our programs. Any change in policy and I could call around to the other senior centers, but most of them, when they have done that, they have grandfathered in people who were, existing regular users. So those 4 people would be grandfathered in anyway. So I philosophically disagree with it. I do think it's important to mix up our groups. And again, I think the solution to this is building van capacity, not being exclusionary, because most of the people sitting here know who those 4 people are. And I'm not going to call out any of them by name.
Yeah.
I like having them here. They add things to our senior center. So I don't understand why we would want to exclude them. I really don't. They are active. They are not people that do nothing and then come in and take our spots on our van. They are people who are at all of our meals. They are in our exercise classes. They are here volunteering for the senior center. They are active parts of the culture of the center. And I don't, again, philosophically, from a social science perspective, I don't feel comfortable with it. And I also don't feel comfortable having that conversation with those 4 people. I honor those 4 people. I value their contribution, and I don't want to do that.
Kim Karen had something to say.
Katie, you have, I've called you many times and I know I feel that you have 4 main volunteers that I can count on that can give me the information and do whatever I need them to do. Why don't you use those 4 main volunteers for this new to see about Ayer residents, using them to make sure that you are an Ayer resident and you can be able to put your name on the list before you use the other outside people.
I see what you're saying there. I think you would have to implement it across all 9 people, otherwise you
Oh, yes.
wouldn't get the same answer depending on when you called. And that would be very confusing.
But I
for
mean,
people.
it really is a touchy subject because I know a few people that are waiting on the waiting list from Ayer that go all the time to the beach where we go, and they're not going this time because Shirley residents are already there, and Littleton residents are already on the list. And when that paper came out, I sat there, and I'll tell you personally, I sat there for over 45 minutes. She refused to go shopping because we wanted to be on the list, because we were going to Yorkport the next day. We knew when we came back, it wouldn't be any room for us. So that's what we did. Now you shouldn't have to do that as an Ayer resident to be able to get on the van.
Right.
You should be able to have a couple of days to be able to get on the van
Right. Definitely.
without
I think
having to
this-
fight other towns,
I think, again, the solution is.
because we only have a
Yeah,
little
I-
van.
I don't
That's all we
disagree,
have.
but that's not gonna happen.
It
Yeah.
can happen. It will happen. We worked on it. Like I hired 2 per diem drivers last year, year before, they crashed the bus. I hired a second per diem, a 3rd per diem driver. He did a wonderful job. He just unfortunately cannot drive for a few weeks. I interviewed another person at the time that I interviewed the current per diem driver. I'm gonna call that person and see if I can get the training process started. It's not not doable. It's just appears to be hard to get one to stick. And I feel like once we get to a place where we can get one to stick, or I can just constantly keep that job posted, for not a revolving door, that sounds dramatic, but you know, then I think it will.
When Shirley went to like the Parker Maple Fund, no, they wouldn't, nobody could go but Shirley residents.
Yeah.
So,
And again,
so if they want to go to York, why can't they take their bus to York?
but I'm not in charge of that.
No,
I'm
I
not in
know,
charge of Shirley. That's-
so,
I'm
but
in
they
charge
take
of
it
yours.
up,
10 days.
and yet.
Like I said, when I came
I
in
want
Monday,
to, you know, it's like we want to support and everything, but my tax, I get really frustrated and I'm like,
So,
where's?
right, so this.
but there are certain trips that people just love to go on, especially seniors.
But that's when I
And
get, why,
York Beach is one
why
of them.
am
When
I?
I came in that Monday, we had a waiting list of about 8 people. After we were filled with the 12. So I mean, there are certain things they love and they love to go to. And it's very difficult. I feel sorry for her
But they don't
because,
talk to us on the bus. They
like I
don't
said,
hang with us in.
we only have one lousy van.
I mean, so we're going to the beach, May, June, July, August, and September. We will have 5 van trips for the bus. I'm doing the best I can with the capacity that I have. I'm constantly trying to build capacity. I haven't given up. I still want to build capacity. I just don't feel
There's
comfortable
still
moving.
people on the waiting list every time they go
Yeah.
to the beach.
So are you telling them
Because
they
they're
can
in
go
second,
next time?
third.
I'm
Yep.
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, we haven't
No.
heard from you yet.
So they'll be the first in line next time.
So, I mean, again, it comes down to the logistics, and if I was gonna do that, I would tell all of you guys that went on the last 2 bus trips that you can't go on the next one.
I haven't.
And then
been
how
on
would
one.
you feel? No, I know, but then how would you feel about that? It doesn't feel,
Wait
They're
a minute.
like a community.
In other words,
to do that.
I would say, I would feel fine about that as long as everybody on that next bus was first come by Air residents. No other residents were on it.
So, this is one of those things that.
That's my opinion.
A difficult position to sit in as a director, because I understand your desire to participate in as much as you can. I do, I get it. That's why we do what we do. I also know that what makes you happy and what makes you happy and what makes you happy, it's varied. 400 different people come
Mhm.
through these doors every year with different views about what makes the senior center great. Why are we all looking at Miriam?
No, I was talking to Mary Ellen.
And so there is no way that I can keep all 404 people happy at any one given time. I just can't. So the best
You're not
thing that
trying hard enough, Kate.
I know, right? Try harder. So the number one thing that I can try and do is look at it from the bigger, larger picture and say, how can I best serve the community? And keeping it open to Ayer residents and surrounding towns is the other towns do it. Some have regulations, some do not. I can point out as many that don't have these tiered systems as do. I can point out that there are towns that shut down the senior center 1 day a month, and all they do is take reservations via the phone that way, and it's first come, first served, no matter what. There's a million different ways to set the policies. I'm just trying to look out for how I, as the director, can set a policy that we can actually follow that will make the most people happy, the most people fulfilled, and fulfill the mission of the senior center.
Okay.
Now you can say what you want to say.
I think it's a thing of, like you said, cover all the people and we keep everybody happy. But you're the director of the Ayer Council on Aging, and we are telling you that we don't like Ayer people not being able to go in lieu of out-of-town people. We're excluded from a lot of their activities. We're included as well. But Ayer people, this is the Ayer housing, the Ayer Council on Aging. And I think the Ayer people should have preference. You
So
know,
80%
number one,
of our
right on top,
participants are Ayer.
top of the top.
If you're in charge of the
You know, I
community.
choose not, I unfortunately, I choose not to go to a lot of the activities because I'm very limited at walking. And I don't wanna, and I also have the option that I can drive myself there. And be in my own space.
Mhm.
So I could go there and drive and clear. And a lot of people that are taking their bus, they're handicapped, they need handicapped equipment with them and everything else. And if there's 2 people in wheelchairs, you know, it's kind of hard to go, and they should have their first option over somebody who lives in Shirley. They have their own bus. Let them go in their own bus. Let them call their own group. Let them go on the trip the same day if they want to be with us so much.
I think it's a losing battle. That's what it is.
You know,
Unfortunately, I don't think anybody really wins, but we've got 5 trips, as you said, that are going to the beach. Would it be possible? Or consider this and making one of them an air only?
Should
I mean,
do that.
I mean, I
You know,
can
that sort
consider
of-
it, but like I said, I disagree with that notion.
So you need to wrap this up,
Yep.
and
Yeah, right.
I appreciate everybody's input. This has been very, very inspiring and helpful and
What's next?
a good conversation.
We give that one to Wood
So- I mean, my takeaways are that the first thing is Katie's point about increasing capacity. To the extent that there is another driver and perhaps an additional van or a part-time van or a leased van or whatever, that will perhaps lessen the tension around signups. That being said, I think it was my hope that we would be able to get into the new center before this conversation kind of really, but clearly there's been some.
5 years. You can see there's displeasure here.
So, I think it would be good for perhaps Katie to look I don't mean. I think we can try to frame a policy or have the senior center frame a policy that is not exclusionary. And that does not target individuals, but also acknowledges that this is the Ayer Senior Center. How you do that logistically, either try something for a couple of months and see whether or not you can actually make it work, or you have particular trips that are Ayer first signups and see whether or not that's workable. Might be something you could think about and look at how might that work. I think that at some point we will need to codify how that will work. At some point in the future, we will need to codify how that might work. We may not be there yet, but I think at some point that will be necessary.
There's gotta be some type of compromise, whether it's certain trips or whatnot. That at least it gets out there for a period of time that they're Ayer residents. Then we can take a look at that data and whatnot and see whether or not that's working or isn't working. Or what else might work. I mean, I'm like, put it online. But I get that there are differences that won't, because you're right, if it's online, it's the first person online that's gonna
Right.
sign up,
Yeah,
but.
Yeah.
I do think we need to
and it's,
come to some type of compromise, at least on some of the trips that figure out, so that we get
as, as far as what the people from Shirley are doing to enhance Ayer when they come down here. What did you say that Shirley's involved in our area, in our counseling on aging?
No, I was saying
What do they
the,
share in?
are you talking about who come? I'm
You
not-
talked about.
Oh, you said they were volunteers.
You said they were doing gym and different stuff, and we know they come down for lunch, and we know they come down for bingo.
Mhm.
And what else do we have that,
Exercise.
Exercise, cards, games, lunches,
Card
all of
games.
those things, they're all. Again, those 4 individuals that are come down
Well,
on.
one
on
doesn't
was
come
there.
at all for anything.
So that is a policy that's designed to target and punish that person. And that is exactly what I'm not comfortable with. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
That is not consistent with the mission of this senior center, any senior center, and it does not match up with my value system, and I will not do that. I will not exclude someone individually based on what is your judgment of what they do or don't
I don't
do.
think we're judging anybody.
It starts to feel like that
no,
in the individual
We're judging
conversations.
anybody.
So I think we've talked about this and we all know where we stand on it.
But I don't feel like we're judging anybody. I think we're saying we are from the town of Ayer and we would like to be able to get on the bus first.
And I
You know,
don't
we're the
disagree
ones that
with
are
the desire to participate. I don't disagree with that.
Hey,
Judy?
Katie, is there some way to discriminate without discriminating against Shirley and against the towns?
But it's not only Shirley, it's Littleton signs up too first.
Yeah,
And but
Such
Judy
as,
had-
what would be, to use your term, Bobby, what would be discriminating without discriminating? What do you mean by that?
well, I don't know.
Give us
Okay.
5 days.
There must be some of your compadres that do it. And they must have worked out some plan. And,
Give us what the other senior centers do.
yeah,
And I hear
Littleton,
all of y'all
Groton.
come in complaining about it every single week. Well, I wanted to do this, but I can't do it because it's this and that. I hear that discontent all the time too.
Yeah.
So there is no one winning policy here. That I understand that there are views on either side of it. I really do. You know, as always, we can continue to revisit it and look at it. But based on the data that I ran, we're talking about four people on van trips. And I don't think that that warrants changing the whole policy.
There's 5, and that's almost half the bus.
It's not even so many, how many different ones,
Mhm.
it's just that you don't have a chance to get on the bus because you only have 12 slots. And if you're not quick, you're not getting on that bus.
Judy?
If you're a near resident, you gotta be quick.
Can I say something?
Are you on?
Is it possible?
Oh, yeah, you're on.
You're talking about getting the new driver, you have 5 bus loads that are gonna go for the beaches, right?
Mhm.
5. What if you got an extra driver for that? Because that seems as though that's what it is.
Yes.
And that's the solution is extra capacity. If Russell came on and as soon as he got up and running and ready to go, he was back off the road.
Right,
So having a second driver allows us to do more events or to double the capacity on the events. I think that really would solve the problem.
right,
And like I said, it's just been a 2-step forward, 1 step back
I know.
kind of issue with the per diem drivers. I have interviewed another one. I want to reach back out to them because it's been a couple of weeks. As long as they're still interested, I can put forth a recommendation to appoint them and they could be, driving in the middle of July. So it's not like it's not a viable solution. It is a viable solution. So we just haven't really had the opportunity to really flex that as much as I would like to.
But you've got 3 people asking that maybe you could try a trip or 2 with, Bob, I don't know where you feel, with just Ayer residents.
yeah. I think we can discriminate against without calling it discrimination.
And that's from a judge.
But then, and again, then that falls on me to go to those 4 people.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it doesn't.
you
It
can't-
goes in the newsletter like every other
That's
town.
what I would do is just do for the newsletter.
I know, but we all have relationships with those people, so, and it's not that I'm unwilling to have difficult conversations, I just think it's.
They put it in their
unnecessary.
newsletters. We have to live by it.
Do you want to
Okay.
talk about any of the other things on the agenda?
We should, yeah. So we should move on. Let's
So
revisit.
it's not solved.
It's not
Friends
solved.
of Air.
It's not solved. It's not. solved.
Senior center of building up that, continue next month.
Well, perhaps not next month, but we will look at it again. I know that previous meeting, we had said every 6 months, we would look at,
Well, I feel it's not settled, so it should go back on in.
well, the question is, how will it be settled? We as a board
Mm-hmm.
cannot force a change in
I
the senior
know.
center policy. We cannot compel a change in policy. We can support policies or make suggestions as to what might be an enhancement to a particular policy, but they would be simply
So
suggestions.
Ayer residents need to
pack our bags and sleep outside the door on sign-up days.
Tell us when it's printed.
I don't ever, when is
No,
it
when
ever
it's
printed? I mean,
So it will.
we'll just tent
So let me,
outside.
in
Yeah.
conclusion, this clearly is a point of friction and contention. My hope is that as we kind of work through how to best have a long-term strategy to address this concern, and I fully understand that. That tension not creep into the daily workings and the daily relationships of the people who come to the center.
It had,
It
and I don't think it will.
No.
It has not, and I don't think it ever will. It's just,
Well, don't you think?
that it would interrupt any relationship or any
I hope not.
conversation. We don't have a problem with that. So
No,
there's
no.
nothing, no. And Katie knows that, you know.
Well, I just put a thumbtack on her seat. And then when you hear her screaming, you go, what the hell?
Judy,
Jean did it.
Judy, did you have something else? Or
No, I was gonna say, I think really, until we get the new building, that I think there'll be a lot of capacity of people that'll go. Right now, for luncheon and everything, it's a mixture of all, like you're saying. And I think it's great that you have all these other people coming. But I think once you get into the new building, there's gonna be a lot of other things that are gonna be happening, really, you know?
I
We'll
understand.
have a
I
second
think there'll
band.
be more people and whatnot.
Well, as the seniors get older and older, and they can't drive, we're gonna need more and more drivers. Here's what we're gonna need.
You listening?
Vans.
About
I'm
7
gonna be
years.
under the ground.
Huh?
In about 7 years.
Not even that.
I'll be on the ground.
Okay, so
I mean,
the
really,
next,
that's the problem.
the next item is, just, I know the Friends of the Air COA at the 501c3. I know that there was a meeting earlier today. Any,
So I think it was a great kickoff meeting. They discussed sort of what the steps were, the need to form a 501c3, and in order to submit that paperwork, they needed to pass bylaws and elect officers. So Mary and I agree, let me first state that everyone's aware that they can't sit on a COA board or a building committee board and also a Friends board. But we did agree to help get whoever ends up being the officers sort of off the ground. So Mary and I are gonna look up what the Friends
bylaws.
policies and bylaws are in other towns. So that group of people that was present can look that over and they can choose to adopt them, elect officers and adopt them. And then they can move forward from there. And then there's a lot of really great fundraising ideas tossed around. So I have a lot of confidence that this group will get going and rolling and do it. So.
So I mean, the real thing is getting the bylaws and electing the officers
yeah,
so that they can then file the 5013C paperwork.
Yeah.
And if that happens, I mean, it's entirely possible that the Friends would be up before the end of the year.
great. Okay.
So.
All right. Just to let you know, I reached out to a friend of mine who's an attorney to see if he would help with the paperwork portion of it. We'll see, although I think the forms can be, you can file them without an attorney.
Look,
Said the judge.
Yeah.
So-
Says an attorney.
good
I
luck.
think Carolyn McCreary said she just did it for her other not-for-profit, so
Oh, she did?
she was willing to do it.
Yeah, she did,
didn't
she
find it
said
to
for a
be
conservation
difficult.
committee she sits on.
Environmentalist.
Yeah.
All right. Building update. Do you want me to?
You can go for it. I feel like I've talked enough.
So we had another senior center building meeting last night. One substantive takeaway, as you may be aware, we were down to 3 possible sites. 115 Washington, which is the area across from the transfer station on the back side of the school leased property. The other one is down on Bishop Road, passing a cemetery before you get to the brush dump, what was used to be the brush dump on the left-hand side there. There's some DPW owned land. And the third spot was on Brook Street, just prior to getting to the DPW offices. After the last house on the left-hand side, if you walked in, there's some town-owned property there that we were also looking at. Last night, we voted to exclude or take out of contention the Brook Street property. It was exceptionally tight. There were some issues around utility lines that were running under where you wanted to put the building. From what I understand, the ledge or where the building would sit, the ground wasn't really easily suitable for construction. So it was felt that the other two sites were preferable. So we're proceeding with that. We have, as you can see up there on the board, there's a schematic with the relative size of the rooms that are now being considered. We talked in some detail about that, how big should the rooms be, what would their capacity be, et cetera. So I would suggest that everyone kind of take a look at that. And so that will give you some sense of the size of the rooms. One thing that we spent some time talking about last night is, so what will be occurring in the rooms? That is, and as the public outreach increases, and as, we hold public meetings to discuss the new senior center, we'll want to have a clear sense from the community about what kinds of things do you want happening in the building. That is, what kind of activities, how much fitness equipment, dance classes, what sorts of arts and crafts classes, watching movies, meal times, and all those things. So it's going to be real helpful for the building committee to have a clear sense from the community about what kinds of things they want occurring in the building. The next step is currently the DPW and the architect are doing kind of like a desktop survey of each of those remaining two sites to determine how suitable is the soil. Does the ground seem like it will be, right for constructing a building? So that will be the first step. And we're going from there. So it's down to two.
When is the next meeting?
The next meeting for the building committee will be.
Which one are you leaning toward?
I think that each member of the committee has a different kind of perspective on which of those two sites they might prefer. So I wouldn't want to prejudge which way it's going to go, because there are still some potentially administrative issues with utilities, getting utilities to the site, gaining control of the land, state regulations regarding endangered species, who evidently salamanders like to cross Bishop Road.
Beavers.
Now, who will make the final decision?
Well, ultimately, the building committee will make a recommendation as to what way we think is the best way forward.
To the select board.
What's that?
To the select board.
To the select board. At the end of the day, it will end up on the town meeting warrant and the townspeople, because it will require funding. And if the town writ large, doesn't feel like the committee's work has, really given them what they want,
So
then
there's a possibility it might come up in October's fall town meeting. In October.
I mean, it's possible, yes.
or a special town meeting that might be held
Right.
sometime after October, but before April. There's a lot of work between now and then in order to, because not only do we have to get a site, we have to get a more precise understanding of the building. And we have to get cost estimates on what it would all cost. And that will all take time, so.
Dennis.
Yeah.
You said control. Do we have to get control over over the Bishop Road, not the Bishop Road, but the dump road. I can't think of the name of the road now.
Rotten.
Groton Harvard Road. Our apologies to everybody other in TV land who are offended. But, you know, I've known it as the Groton Dump Road all my life.
Yeah, right.
77 years,
Wow.
That's what it is.
yeah. And, you know, is there a situation involving the schools that we gotta take the property away from the school? And we gotta have a town meeting to, I heard something about the town was gonna research that.
Yeah,
So-
I'll let Katie.
So for Bishop Road, which is confusing because there's the brush dump and then there's the transfer station dump, right? So they both involve dump.
I don't know.
So Bishop Road, that is town-owned land under the control of the DPW. There's no procedural process needed for that. For the Groton Harvard Road site, that parcel, which is labeled 115 Washington, that's that triangle shape that is 55 acres that belongs to, that is town-owned property under the operation of the school department. So in order to use that, a piece of that land down adjacent to the practice field across from the transfer station, in order to use that, the procedure is that the school committee and the school committee would need to, let me start. The town would need to do a legal survey to define the parcel that they're interested in, to define that particular piece of land. Then the school committee would need to declare that parcel as surplus, as excess, something that they don't need. And then the select board would also declare that as surplus. And then at town meeting, the Ayer townspeople would affirm what the school committee and the select board said, that it was surplus, excess land that could be turned out of use for educational purposes and back into municipal purposes for the sake of the senior center.
To answer your question, Barbara, the building committee meets on the 26th, Wednesday, the 26th
Wednesday,
is the
the
next
26th.
meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Prior to that, Katie will be going to the select board meeting on Tuesday, the 18th, just to update them in an official way regarding the work of the building committee, where things stand currently and what our next steps going forward, you know, in the immediate future. So the 18th
And the 26th.
and the 26th.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions on the building at all? And again, I would encourage everyone to talk to your friends, see the building committee, provide suggestions. You know, obviously you want to look at the schematics. And there will be more formal public outreach in terms of surveys and public forums to get more input from the public and inform them. You know, so hopefully when we get to the floor of town meeting, the vast majority of questions that might come up will have already been answered.
Do you have any idea
Oh, don't.
when they will say, we got the dump or the cemetery? You have any idea of when they will say which parcel they'll use?
Well, the they is to some extent we.
Well, you know what I mean.
Go today.
You're gonna be telling us, guess what? We've got this land, we're gonna build our senior center on.
Well, I think what we'll be saying is that the committee has done its work. We've consulted with the architect. We've talked to the community. In our judgment, this is the best viable solution to building a new senior center, and this is what we would recommend that the town of Ayer pursue and move forward with. We will make that recommendation at some point to the select board, and then it will go on to the town meeting warrant for funding purposes, and then we'll formally find out.
And then, once you make your recommendation, how much longer you think before you'll say, yes, we're gonna put the shovel in the ground?
Depends how taxpayers vote.
That's right.
And you like the way I said the shovel in the,
Yeah.
hey, I mean, I've seen it happen a lot with, they say that you work on it, you work on it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's 2 and 3 years later, and well, it's like, here.
It's more than
It's
two.
what,
yeah,
it's been 2
yeah.
years that you've been
Absolutely.
talking about it.
Yeah.
We've been at this stage for 2 years.
Well, I actually think that we're further along than we were before. We
Yeah,
went
we got
down,
two-
we
we
went
got
down
two
a
we
dead
might
end.
have.
Yeah, yeah, but we didn't have, there were plans for me, there was a schematic plan. There was a floor plan, but there was no site. And then there was possibly a site, but not a site, right? So we went down that road and came back again. So now we are with a new architect. And I think that's going well. We have two
Has it been
sites
about
that will
2
hopefully.
years though? Hasn't it been?
Not, so this committee that's renewed this effort was appointed in August. So, so we have narrowed 54 pieces of town-owned land down to 3, now down to 2. We've hired an architect. We have, finalized a preliminary plan since that period of time. So, and hopefully it will keep moving forward at an ever increasing clip because we want to see it.
I think it might happen by Labor Day. A decision of where we would dig a hole
What the recommendation might be, like Labor Day?
to go to the selectmen. who-
I don't think to the
That-
selectmen by Labor Day, but
No.
to go to the October town meeting would require our decision to be made in time to meet the deadline for the warrant, which I believe is 2 weeks before. So it would have to be decided by mid-October. So you're not that far off of it. I think it will really depend at this point what soil samples tell us. Because
And the
they may,
expenses.
and the cost. So if the soil samples in both look good and the cost looks good, then it's just picking one. But I suspect there will be issues with one or the other sites or the cost, and that there'll be a little bit more back and forth before we'll make our decision. A lot of factors at play, but.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, all right. Any public input on other topics of concern?
I just want to say we had a nice time at the firemen's, and then we had a good Mother's Day, looking forward to Father's Day.
Good,
Oh, that's
good,
great.
good,
Good
good.
job,
Yeah,
the town, they
that was
did
lovely.
an excellent job.
Uh-huh.
With the function,
Your
yeah,
girls worked hard, and so did the fire department.
yeah, it was really good,
Great, yeah,
Yeah.
good.
yeah. And
Great,
Katie
thank you.
does a good job with, all the functions and stuff that we do.
Have a lot of fun
She does.
planning them, so thank you.
Yeah, yep.
All right. Okay, so with that, do I hear a motion to
I make a
adjourn?
motion,
Second.
second it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I.
3:50, we'll call it.